All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Kadlick and Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media, back with another episode of the Patriots Daily Podcast. Powered this week by Prize Picks, powered this week by Omaha Stakes, and also, Taylor, today, powered by the optimistic side of the Patriots loss to the Bills. You guys know we love to look at the bright side on this show. Unfortunately, yesterday we had to kind of dig into the bad, look at some of the things the Patriots did not do well, did not execute in their 35-31 loss to Buffalo that dropped them, as we know, to 11-3. But again, that's what yesterday was for. Today we're going to try and look at the better things that they accomplished. Obviously, the run game was successful. We saw Travion Henderson break off a couple solid runs. Drake Maye got involved in the ground game as well. So we want to look at that, as well as some of the solid things that Drake Maye put together in general, including breaking down their drive at the end of the first half that was actually solid and one of the better ones they put together. So we will start with the run game. However, just in general, again, a couple days out. Looking
actually, let's start with 2 minutes. I think might feel a little bit better. My bad.
Okay, I like that then. Let's start. We'll dive right into it. Actually, we'll start with Drake Maye's 2-minute drive at the end of the first half, because he did show flashes. He looked solid. They put together, a scoring drive there at the back end of the first half, got 3 points. So I'll have you pull it up right away, and we can break right into it and get down to business, because we want to flush this bad stuff, Taylor. We want to talk about the good right away. So no need to intro it. Let's kick it off.
And I will say we are doing silver linings, but I'm also not gonna blow smoke or anything like that. Totally, this was a bad Drake Maye performance. There were a lot of throws, I think, as we said yesterday, that he got away with in the first half. But the only stretch of play where I really felt like he was dialed in and you got glimpses of all the things you come to expect from Drake Maye, and even some things that they had trouble with throughout the game or were inconsistent on, where you kind of saw, okay, we're not crazy. It's there. This was just a game where there was more bad than good. But as we said, this was a pretty positive stretch for Drake Maye. So let's start breaking this one down. So this was the 2-minute drive towards the end of the first half. Now, this was right after Travion Henderson only gained 1 yard on a run. I was thinking, okay, what's the strategy here exactly? Are they just going to try to run it out and not get Josh Allen the ball back? Are they going to be aggressive? Sean McDermott didn't, I think he didn't take a timeout or something. So he kind of let the clock drain. Yeah, and the Patriots kind of gave themselves a chance with this play to say, all right, if we get good yardage on this, we'll keep going. So here we go. The Patriots are going to come out in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. So the Bills are thinking this could potentially be a run look. You got Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper both attached to the same side of the line. Travion Henderson in the backfield. So kind of like Rex Burkhead, gives you some flexibility there where he's not necessarily just a runner, could also be a passing option. And then in the slot, we got Stephon Diggs. But actually, I'm sorry, not 12, 13 personnel, because we have Jack Westover all the way outside at wide receiver. This was one of those in the press box where you see things, and I saw Jack Westover outside, and I literally went, Stephon Diggs in the slot on juke, watch. And that's exactly what's going to happen, because the Patriots love to create these mismatches where they get a bunch of big bodies on the field, and instead of running, they'll actually spread it out and have Stephon Diggs inside, where if the defense is in zone coverage, which typically they are in their base looks, he's going to get matched up against linebacker. Here, that sorry guy is going to be Shaq Thompson, who actually does a solid job in coverage, but better play from the offense, as we'll get into. So at the top of the screen, we're going to get a vertical concept here with Austin Hooper going down the seam, Hunter Henry basically just occupying space outside. And then you got Travion Henderson. He's actually going to flex out to create an empty look and then run a slant underneath those 2 vertical options. And to the field side, this is what we really want to pay attention to. You basically end up wasting Jack Westover if you're a Bills defender, because he's going to be running a decoy route up the field. Then you're going to get Stephon Diggs on a crosser. I think it's a juke route because the way he has some shake at the top, it looks like he does have the option to either sit it down or break outside as well based on how the defense responds. I just don't like to say definitively because they have different variations. Totally. You never know for sure. So here it is going to play out like a shallow crosser against a mismatched linebacker. And that's going to stink because the Bills, even though they're showing a single high coverage, are actually going to be playing cover 2 zone. And that's going to pit, again, Stephon Diggs against Shaq Thompson. But with the vertical route here, one threat you might be worried about is this middle linebacker, because you're thinking, all right, he's going to have to carry someone up the seam if he's in cover 2. Usually that'd probably be Stephon Diggs because that's the formation strength. He's the biggest threat on the field. But I think that Travion Henderson shifting out and making it an empty look, so there are 3 people to that side in the passing strength, I think that influences this linebacker to look away from Diggs and helps create that throwing window, as we'll see. So moving on, Drake Maye is going to get the ball. And as he does, he's going to start off looking left. So he sees, I'm not sure exactly what he's looking at, but when he looks left, you can see the middle linebacker is really trying to carry Austin Hooper up the seam. And once he looks to the right, he's going to see that Stephon Diggs is not quite winning, but at least does have a good matchup. That's exactly where he's going to go with the ball. He's going to let this go, so it's right between the hashes. Stephon Diggs has beaten the linebacker. You can see he's kind of a step behind. Stephon Diggs is winning in front, and it's going to end up being a very tight window throw because Thompson isn't fully out of this, even though he gets duped. I thought he actually defended these juke routes very well, but Drake Maye with perfect pinpoint accuracy to put this outside the reach of Shaq Thompson and also not have it be a hospital ball where he hurts Stephon Diggs. Quickly, I'm going to go to the end zone angle so you can see just how tight this was. Shaq Thompson's hand is right there in the pocket. So if this is a little bit behind Stephon Diggs, and as we said, Drake Maye's accuracy wasn't really on point in this game. There were a lot of plays that were either behind guys or forced them to have to make an adjustment. No adjustment needed here. Just kind of make a very highly contested throw. Stephon Diggs, that's his specialty. He snatches this ball out of the air and gets the drive going with some positive momentum. It wasn't a big gain, but again, it was some positive momentum that they would end up capitalizing on. And once again, goes down just outside of midfield. Now, Patriots facing 3rd and 3. Crucial moment here because if you get stopped or it's incompletion and the clock stops, you're really putting yourself in a bad spot where Bryce Behringer's been inconsistent on punts, so you never know what's going to happen. You just don't want to give Josh Allen the ball back with any time on the clock, really not having any idea what the Bills are going to do. So the Patriots here are going to come out in a 3-by-1 set. We're going to be paying attention to the top of the screen where you've got Mac Hollins as the kind of Z receiver to the outside, Stephon Diggs in the slot, and Hunter Henry as the tight end. Now, they're going to be running what's called a levels concept, where you're going to see this a couple times in the video. It's a very common concept that they like to run out of these 3 receiver kind of looks to the same side. Hunter Henry is going to be the guy running the downfield corner route. And then you're going to get 2 under routes from Mac Hollins and Stephon Diggs. Now, the tricky thing about these kinds of concepts is that you can know it's coming, but you don't always know who exactly is going to be running that vertical route. Could be Stephon Diggs or it could be Hunter Henry. Once again, in this case, it's going to be Hunter Henry. And even though the Bills, pre-snap presentation, you're thinking this is probably going to be cover 1, right? You got guys with their eyes on the offensive player staring directly at them with their hips towards them, but they're actually going to be running cover 3 zone where this outside corner is actually going to be walling off, looking for anything that's going to break outside. The slot defender, Teron Johnson, is going to fire into the flat. And then the defender who's right out front of Hunter Henry, I think that's Colt Bishop, he's going to be in a short zone coverage with a single high safety who doesn't really factor into this play. Now, post-snap, you see the Bills, I think, were anticipating that they were going to get this kind of concept or something similar because you see Teron Johnson immediately buzzes underneath Mac Hollins' short route. And then you also get the safety here diving on top of Stephon Diggs' route. And also this linebacker, I think that's Shaq Thompson, is also ready to fire if that ball goes underneath. But Hunter Henry, nobody to defend him because in some circumstances, if it's a perfect situation, you would have Teron Johnson maybe getting some depth to get underneath this. And this corner does have a chance to make a play on this if Hunter Henry keeps running on the corner.
Yep.
This is where the savvy veteran comes into play because instead of continuing on his route, he's going to settle down. And as soon as he realizes he's about to break into space, he settles into that void. Drake Maye is going to see that and fire this ball as Hunter Henry is just sitting down once again in space with this defender still all the way outside, not able to make a play on the ball. Hunter Henry is going to catch it and go down, finally get the Patriots past midfield and into a more makeable field goal range. It was like one final play.
There was like 5 people in the press box who screamed like he's wide open when they saw the seized part for Hunter Henry. And like you said, it's smart for them to not just keep going with the play. You need to understand the void in coverage, get the ball to him fast. Hunter settles down so then he can make more of a play on his own instead of trying to run himself into a defender and become, get up, caught up shorter.
Exactly. And we've highlighted a few times in the past month plus how these two kind of haven't been on the same page, or maybe Drake's throws don't really put Hunter Henry in a great spot, or Hunter's dropping passes that are tough but still catchable, especially for him. This was a nice example. Not a contested catch, obviously. He's wide open, but it might look like a simple play where it's just a busted coverage, but this was a really great job by these two seeing the void in space and attacking it.
Yep.
Now, this isn't going to be a throw, but it is going to show a little precursor to our run game series because Drake Maye was able to burn the Bills with his legs. That was a big reason he was able to have success along with the entire Patriots offense in that first half of play. So 32 seconds left. Patriots are going to come out in another 3-receiver look. This time, instead of Stephon Diggs in the slot, we're going to get Demario Douglas. And in the backfield, we're going to have Ramondre Stevenson, Kayshon Boutte once again at X, and Matt Collins outside to the 3-receiver side. Now, the Patriots here are going to be running a verticals concept with Boutte and Hollins both just going on straight go routes. You're also going to have Demario Douglas running what's kind of like a post or a seam or something like that. But basically, he's running a downfield route over the middle of the field. Hunter Henry's going to chip before releasing for a check down. And then Ramondre Stevenson looks like he scans to make sure no one's rushing. Then he also is going to make himself an option on an in-breaker underneath. Now, the Bills defense is running straight man coverage, but instead of using one of their extra defenders to keep an eye on Drake Maye, they're going to play cover 2 man, which is something we actually saw quite a few times from the Bills defense. We talked about it yesterday, and this was one of the times that the Patriots, they were kind of hit or miss, but here they really are going to burn them for not keeping an extra pair of eyes on Drake Maye while playing man coverage. Up front, this is going to be very important. We're going to get a 3-man slide to the left because you got the 2 down defensive linemen and this linebacker sugaring in the A-gap to the left. And then to the right, you're going to get what looks like a man one-on-one kind of blocking scheme with Mike Nwenu on the defensive tackle and Morgan Moses up against Joey Bosa, who's in a very wide alignment outside of Hunter Henry. Now, the Bills defense, for their part, are going to kind of screw themselves here because – not dissimilar to the Patriots in a lot of this game, they're not going to run a successful line game. You're actually going to end up getting some friendly fire because these guys aren't terribly well coordinated. On the other side, Joey Bosa is going to be trying to rush the edge with this defensive tackle, trying to create some pressure on the inside. Now, post-snap, Teron Johnson, to his credit, gets a great jam on Demario Douglas. You don't see guys do this often, but Pop being a smaller guy, as strong as he is, if you are able to get your hands on him, it's going to be tough for him to unravel. Now, to be fair, Trey White kind of cheats here and plays it more like, I don't know if he knows that he's in man coverage or if it's miscommunication. Yeah. He plays this more like zone where he peeks back and looks at the quarterback. That actually leads to Matt Collins being wide open for what could have been a whole shot if Drake Maye was looking there. But it looks like he actually starts to Kayshon Boutte's side and sees that he's running a deep route with this safety going from the box all the way deep to try to cover him. Now, looking back at the end zone angle as this is happening, you see the friendly fire, right? So what happens is the edge defender who's trying to knife inside to create some disruption actually ends up missing. You see him right here. He's trying to pick off Jared Wilson, but just goes right past him and ends up taking out Mike Nwenu's assignment. So those two guys run into each other, and that's going to create a huge void in the middle eventually. Now, Drake does have Ramondre Stevenson breaking open on this underneath route, and he could throw this, but just one tick later, and you can see he's thinking about it. He's kind of cocked and ready to potentially throw. But a tick later, I might have put the same thing in twice. But you can see there is a huge hole that's going to open up. And Garrett Bradbury is going to help kind of seal this part of the line. And that's going to create the gap that Drake Maye ends up exploiting. Yep. He takes off, gets past the defensive line. Now, the one obstacle he needed to get around was this defender. He was trying to tell Kayshon Boutte to block. But I think Kayshon wanted to avoid any kind of penalty. So he does miss. And Drake Maye gets tripped up. And his knee hits down before the ball gets out of bounds. So the clock did continue to run. This was one that the officials actually looked over, and they kept the clock going, took some time off for New England. That was unfortunate, but pretty much Drake Maye doing everything he could in that situation, put the Patriots in position to kick a field goal going into halftime. So you do see Drake can still work his magic. And in these end-of-half situations, he can be very dangerous because he can be precise with the ball. He can show chemistry with his receivers to exploit lapses in the defense. And if you decide you're not going to respect his legs, he can absolutely gash you for explosive gains. Now, that said, this was, again, one of the few times he really did get into a rhythm and string positive plays together. And his downfield precision especially was completely gone. Like outside of that completion of Hunter Henry, he really didn't look great throwing downfield, which you don't expect. So Need to see more consistency out of him. He needs to bounce back against the Ravens, but at least this showed that glimmer of hope that, okay, we're not crazy. Drake
not all gone.
And I think it's also crazy to think that, even though I will admit the recent trend of him being wildly inaccurate in his past like 5 or so games, and also kind of falling off at times in the second half for stretches, or starting very slow before turning it on, that's alarming. And it's something that is no longer interesting. I think it is important and something that he's going to have to show he can overcome. But at least you can see, once again, in these crucial moments, Drake Maye can take over, but he's just got to execute. And more often than not, I didn't think it was what the Bills were doing. I thought it was more Drake Maye not taking advantage of opportunities that he typically does.
And it's interesting too. We talk about, we've done the 300-yard game thing here on the show a couple times and talked about, how consistent he's been, because again, when you look at his simple line chart, if you will, his game logs, it's like 250, 240, 260, whatever. But in the games themselves, it kind of has been a roller coaster. It has been inconsistent where he's been lights out and then he has a poor drive and what have you. So to be consistent over the season has been solid, but he has to now find it in game to be able to kind of perform at a level that the entire offense can rely on for the entirety of the game, instead of just have, 3 drives where he's unconscious and the other ones where, well, he's unconscious for different reasons and doesn't look as good. So
which is the avatar state. We need more avatar state and less Aang in the iceberg.
There you go. That's the perfect way to put it. I was going to say, I totally understand that one for sure. But no, he was good on that drive. He had a couple small flashes, but he also had some great flashes. That last one was in the run game, but in the run game in general, goes for 4 carries for 43 yards. He had the 2 touchdowns. So we'll want to break down all of that in a second, because their run game now, Taylor, that's kind of what topic we're going to go off, could potentially, it's been poor all season, but if they can perform the way they did on Sunday, can be a potential strength for them heading into the postseason. So want to break that down for you guys in just a second here. But first, I got to tell you guys about Prize Picks, because Prize Picks is the best place to get in on the action this holiday season. It's the best time of year for sports. They got bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes, and more, and it is all happening all at once. So while you and I are out here making decisions every single day, there's one place where it feels good to be right, and that is on Prize Picks. They now have a new feature. It's called early payouts. So if your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. It's super simple to play on Prize Picks. All you got to do is pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. And if you get your picks right, you can cash in. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS and you get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS, and you will get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, so Drake, as we mentioned there, Taylor, hot and cold in the passing game, but he did have a couple solid runs. He had, again, I mentioned it before, 43 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. On top of that, this was overall their best rushing performance of the entire season. Averaged nearly 10 yards a carry. Obviously, we've talked about the YPC, that's skewed given the long runs, but Travion Henderson broke 2 50-yard runs for touchdowns. He led them with 148 yards on 14 carries. And he had a pair of touchdowns as well. So 4 rushing touchdowns for the Pats. And they were solid here. So is this something you think that was an anomaly, was a little bit of a fluke against Buffalo? Or is this something you think that they can kind of lean on here on out to potentially help them, over these next 3 weeks, as well as during a potential playoff push?
I think this is truly becoming a potential area of strength for the team. Now, I do want to give the caveat. They have played some horrific run defenses this season. Sure. That has to be taken into consideration. And sometimes they haven't taken advantage quite as much as I think that they should have. But also, there's a lot of bad run defenses in the NFL, which also needs to be acknowledged. Like the fact that it feels like they're seeing them almost week in and week out. And I can't remember many teams that were great against the run necessarily, some that were definitely better. And again, because they were so bad, you just weren't really able to see it. But I think we even said entering this game, there were some flashes for sure. Like against the Giants, Ramondre Stevenson looked as healthy as he has all season and showed that physicality. We've seen Travion Henderson's coming off a Rookie of the Month campaign, and he continues to show that he can both take advantage of good blocking and even make things happen when things don't play out the way that they're drawn out on paper. And
he's the favorite. He's the favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year right now. Travion.
I mean, yeah. How many rookie of the weeks does he have now? This is like the third game where he's at least been like highly eligible for it. Probably more. I've completely lost track, to be honest. But just a testament to what he's done. So Travion Henderson really coming on strong. And then now we're starting to see Drake Maye. I don't want to make it seem like this came out of nowhere because we've talked about it. The Patriots have called read options and options for Drake Maye to keep the ball. They just haven't always manifested that way. And actually, the first touchdown that he scored was the same play they ran against the Bengals, but he threw it away. And we talked about it because I'm saying, well, Mac Hollins is blocking someone in the end zone, and no one else looks like they're trying to run a route. So I don't think that this was actually supposed to be a pass. I think it was supposed to be a run. Now we kind of got the confirmation there. But the fact that you are adding more dimensions, the fact that Ramondre's looking better and Travion is on this hot streak is starting to make me think that they can become maybe not a great run offense, but one that you do have to respect. And obviously, if you're going to let Travion loose, one that you do need to be afraid of. And it's also a testament to how the blocking has improved. Now, I think they're starting to find the strength of this offense. So without further ado, let me dive into this run. So first, I'm going to start off with the running backs and specifically the Patriots power run scheme. Now, power run scheme is a gap run where you're trying to hit a specific hole and you're going to pull an offensive lineman typically to try to reach somebody at the second level. And the Patriots have good athletes. They got Morgan Moses, who typically we've seen his athleticism on toss plays where he gets out and tries to block cornerbacks, but they've also pulled him a few times. And when the scheme worked out, he really flashed in those moments. And obviously, you also have Jared Wilson, who is like a 99th percentile athlete. And I think we really saw them taking advantage of that, as well as using good personnel to create some of these opportunities, or smart personnel, rather. So in this example, we are going to have the Patriots running from shotgun. This was the first play from 11 personnel. So they use this to try to get the Bills in a bit of a lighter front. As you can see, 4 down defensive linemen. Nick Bosa is kind of hiding behind Hunter Henry's name tag. And then you've got Teron Johnson in the box, kind of acting as a linebacker. Backfield, we got Ramondre Stevenson. Hunter Henry is your Y, attached to the line of scrimmage in a 3-point stance. And then Mac Hollins basically serving as a tight end on the wing, kind of like we see when Austin's in the game and Hunter Henry's off. And also just off the screen, you get Stephon Diggs. Throws a solid block, but he's not really at the point of attack here. But we'll highlight him as well when the time comes. Now, the scheme the Patriots are going to be running is actually not the power you typically expect. So when you see a look like this and someone tells you it's going to be power, you would expect this to hit off tackle between Morgan Moses and Hunter Henry, with Jared Wilson pulling across the formation and getting to the second level. But this one, I think, kind of catches the Bills off guard, because instead of going off tackle, they're actually going to hit this really in this A gap to the left between Jared Wilson and Garrett Bradbury. And I love this because we've mentioned how Jared Wilson and Garrett Bradbury aren't always great on double teams because they're both kind of undersized players. Here, you get Mike Nwenu helping on the double team, which lets Bradbury get to the second level a little bit easier. Really like that. And also, we talked about the tight ends not really being great at the point of attack and giving them room to run. Well, here, the tight end is going to be on the backside, and Mac Hollins is basically just going to try to stop anybody from getting underneath. So again, schematically, I love this. And Ramondre Stevenson said he and Travion Henderson, who ran out of the shotgun a lot in college, are both comfortable doing it, and they actually like to do it. That's not insignificant, because some backs do not feel comfortable in this kind of scheme, because rather than getting a lot of space to see how the blocking develops before hitting the point of attack, you're kind of taking the ball and going unless you have elite patience. There's just less room for you to really read things out. So you got a running back who can execute this scheme. And again, you're putting players in a good position to thrive here. So we're going to get, again, this point of attack right in this A gap with Morgan Moses pulling to the second level and showing off his athleticism. So Ramondre gets the handoff. Great double team here from Mike Nwenu and Garrett Bradbury. That completely displaces the defensive tackle, is going to open up a lane for them to climb. Jared Wilson on kind of the backside seal is going to do a nice job getting his defender out of the lane. And you're going to see Morgan Moses is pulling right up to Matt Milano. Now, as Ramondre Stevenson is hitting the hole, you do get Morgan Moses connecting on this pull. Garrett Bradbury has gotten off his block, and he's going on his second level climb. And Mike Nwenu and Hunter Henry have both done a great job sealing off this part of the line. And Mike Nwenu has completely turned his defender around, which, you know, he hasn't been super consistent in the run game. I know some people have been wanting to see him, you know, move some people more. Well, it doesn't get much better than this. This was a Mike Nwenu play. Now, huge, massive lane here for Ramondre Stevenson to work through. Again, you got Jared Wilson, Morgan Moses doing their part on this side. Garrett Bradbury came off the double, got to the second level. And even Stephon Diggs, he's blocking his defender as well. I think that's Trey White doing his thing as well. And Ramondre Stevenson has daylight, but he has to worry now about these two defensive backs. But we talked about it. Ramondre is good if he has to try to get through smaller defenders. And even though both guys can join, he does a great job lowering his pads and is actually going to slip through the first tackle. Does end up getting tripped up by Jordan Poyer, but a great explosive gain on the Patriots' first play to set them up right outside of midfield. Yeah,
they've like you said, the inconsistency is the problem here. But when you go back and watch the film, you see it done right. Like it can. Looking at it being a strength versus a weakness, like if they can run it correctly, they have the horses to do so, right? Ramondre, Travion, and then all these linemen who, when they're on, can be great run blockers in the right place at the right time. So you want to look for consistency, but when it's on, it's on. And I think ultimately, again, I'm with you. They can make it happen.
Oh yeah, brother. And now, of course, we got to get to Travion Henderson.
Let's do it.
I didn't include both of his touchdown runs because the second clearly was not designed to go that way. Showed great improvisation from him, and obviously the block from Drake was very cool. I just didn't think it was very schematically interesting because the Bills' backside completely fell asleep and opened up the lane for Travion to burn them the way we know he's capable of. But there was another power scheme that I did want to break down because I thought this was another example of scheme matching up well with their personnel and just great execution as well on the Patriots' part. So here, rather than going with a lighter front, they're going to go heavy. You got Thayer Munford in the game as an inline tight end. Austin Hooper now on the wing to the strong side. And Hunter Henry went from the right side of this formation besides Austin Hooper and is now creating a seal and closing off this side beside Vidarian Lowe. Once again, Travion Henderson is going to be in the backfield. Now, this is going to be another power play. This is a more conventional type of power run. Again, you're doing it off tackle where you're trying to get this double team at the point of attack and hit this gap with Jared Wilson, as I mentioned before, actually pulling to block at the second level. So at the point of attack, whole lot of beef here against Joey Bosa. You got Morgan Moses and Thayer Munford on the combo. They're going to climb up to the second level on Shaq Mason. Mike Nwenu is going to get his seal one-on-one. He's going to win those the vast majority of the time. Garrett Bradbury is going to block down on the 3 technique before getting on his climb. And then Vidarian Lowe and Hunter Henry are basically going to try to get outside, almost kind of like a outside zone kind of technique, and just try to cut off this backside run. And in the backfield, once again, this is not from the shotgun. This is going to be from under center with Travion Henderson having a little jab step where it's a little bit of misdirection before he ends up triggering towards the point of attack. Now, as Travion Henderson gets the handoff, you can see more Mike Nwenu dominating his one-on-one block. You get the climb from Garrett Bradbury. That one's coming. Look how far they blocked Joey Bosa off the line of scrimmage between Morgan Moses and Thayer Munford. We talked about coming out of the bye week. We wanted to see more heavy personnel. We wanted to see more gap runs behind Morgan Moses. This made me feel like a kid on Christmas. I was like, not only are you doing what I asked, but it actually looks the way it did in my head. So this was freaking sick to see. Also got to credit Austin Hooper. He isn't really at the point of attack, but he's doing a solid job getting on the edge. And you've got Jared Wilson trying to get to Jordan Poyer at the second level. Now, as Travion Henderson hits the hole, hell a lot of space to work with. The Patriots have completely reset the line of scrimmage here. Phenomenal push again from the combo. Jared Wilson connects, and you've got a whole lot of blue connected with a whole lot of white and a whole lot of space for Travion Henderson. He's going to exploit that. The one player that has any shot, I'm going to get them. The one player that has any shot of making this tackle is Cole Bishop. Mac Hollins is hauling butt trying to get there, but Jared Wilson's like, nah, I know the rookie. I'm pretty sure this is going for a touchdown. And it didn't take Mac Hollins to feel the same way for very long, because once Travion Henderson does get past Cole Bishop, it's a wrap.
And he's leaving. It's just like a wide receiver.
He's leaving and going from the 35, teleporting into the end zone with 2 Bills defensive backs trailing behind him. The explosive potential of this offense, man, you got your power with Ramondre Stevenson. I don't think anybody's going to argue his past 2 games have been 2 of the best that we've seen from him in a very, very long time. So getting that kind of physicality element back, but also Travion Henderson, who's powerful enough in his own right, able to capitalize on, yes, some poor blocking at times, like on the rep of toss or outside zone, whichever it was, but
Sure.
also the offensive line being able to finally maximize its personnel, reset the line of scrimmage, and give him a ton of space where we know he's at his most dangerous. So if they can continue, they told us it's time on task. You need to continue to kind of work on these combos in practice, get comfortable with each other, and really make this thing work. I think that combined with Thayer Munford and what he's been able to do has really allowed the Patriots run game to take some positive steps in recent weeks. And I think that against the Ravens, they're not a great run defense either. And I think that's going to be a game where you have to be balanced, given the ridiculous amount of looks that Baltimore can throw at you. So hopefully they can keep this positivity going.
And you mentioned the time on task there with Travion too. And we've done it on the show so many times, but the fantasy football people upset that Travion's not getting his reps or whatever. It's like he just needed to find his feel. And this game showed, and I know we're not going to break down the other long run, but when he does have the blocking, he can break 150 plus yards for 6. When he doesn't have the blocking, he can still break 160 yards for 6. So his dynamic playmaking ability is going to be so critical for this team, frankly, down the stretch of this season and also moving forward for, hopefully a long time. So they've got it going in the running game with the running backs. They also got it going with Drake Maye as a runner as well. So I want to get to that right now. We'll talk about Omaha after, but I need to see Drake Maye run for a couple of touchdowns here. So what do you got?
And that you will, my friend. So the first play we're going to break down once again is a play we actually saw them dial up against the Cincinnati Bengals. Got blown up because of a blitz, but it's going to work here. So the Patriots are going to start out an 11 personnel look, and they're going to start with empty. So Travion Henderson, as you can see, is all the way on the outside. What this is going to do is give a tell to what coverage the Bills are in, because where these quarterback runs are the most dangerous is against man coverage, because you have most defenders not looking at the quarterback. And as we know, Josh Allen kind of gutted the Patriots with these quarterback runs against man coverage, puts the defense in a tough spot. So Travion on the outside with Matt Milano also all the way on the outside. That is a dead giveaway that the Bills are in man coverage. And then you're going to get Travion Henderson on a home motion back to the backfield besides Drake Maye. Now, once he's done that, the Patriots are going to run a zone read with Hunter Henry on what's called an arc block, where he's going to come from the backside of the play and not block this front side defender. He's just going to keep going and basically serve as a lead blocker for the quarterback. And then, as you can see, the blocking here, Darian Lowe is immediately going to try to get to the second level, and then you're going to get everybody trying to wash down this way just in case it actually does end up being a handoff to Travion Henderson on inside zone. And also Kayshon Boutte. This was a block that confused us last time because I wasn't sure if he was setting a pick or if he was really just trying to run block. But here you can really see that now that Matt Milano's back in the box, you're going to get a crack here from Kayshon Boutte to help Drake Maye get to the outside. And the player that Drake Maye is going to read is A.J. Epinesa. So he's going to be key here. If A.J. stands up and just stays in his place, Drake Maye is going to hand it off because it's going to create enough of a gap that it might allow Travion Henderson to cut inside. But if he crashes down to respect Travion Henderson, that's going to open the door for Drake Maye to be able to take this one. And as we know, that's exactly what's going to happen. So initially, you got Drake Maye at the mesh point. A.J. Epinesa, you can see his momentum is bringing him all the way down. And Hunter Henry is kind of peeling out, going to leave him unblocked so he can get to the defense outside. And Drake Maye is going to keep this one by reading A.J., who, as we can see, is not in a position to do anything on this play. Good crack block from Kayshon Boutte. Hunter Henry does a great job getting to Jordan Poyer, but Darian Lowe misses his block on Shaq Thompson. So not only is Drake going to eventually have to make Jordan Poyer miss, he's also going to have to outrun Shaq Thompson, but Drake making it 20 miles an hour. So that's no big thing. He ends up making Shaq Thompson miss. There he is on the ground. Poor guy. Yep. Hunter Henry still locked in. Jordan Poyer, only thing keeping Drake Maye from getting into the end zone, and he's not going to be able to do it. Touchdown, Drake Maye. A concept I hope we see, not too much. I don't want it to be a dead giveaway, but wouldn't mind seeing this a little bit more often when they get into scoring territory.
It felt like a dead giveaway in this one to me. It felt like we talked about it. A lot of people talked about it throughout the season and over the bye week, that one of these things they want to see is Drake Maye in the run game. And I don't know if Josh is listening to us, to other shows, if he's just like, we need to get this kid going. But the second they got towards the red zone and needed to fix those red zone woes, he said, F it, I'm putting it in number 10's hands. And it worked twice. You have the second one here as well?
Of course I got the second one. We get Drake Maye's taking runs into the end zone. We got to celebrate. All right, so this one was second and goal later on in the first quarter. Oh, my gosh. Please tell me this is – oh, no. Oh, my God. It didn't upload right. I hate that. Hold up. I can fix this. Oh, that's so annoying.
You know what? I'll talk about Omaha, and I'll let you fix it. Let's do that because we still have to talk about our friends at Omaha Stakes. I'm glad we saved the ad read. Because look at that burger fresh on your screen. From effortless holiday hosting to unforgettable gifts, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. With Omaha Steaks, you know exactly what you are getting, and it is that USDA certified tender steak, premium protein, elegant sides, and decadent, indulgent desserts. So shop this season's top gourmet gifts at omahasteaks.com. And for our listeners right now, you get an extra $35 off the top with code Patriots at checkout. I had my new Omaha Steak shipment come in yesterday. It was phenomenal. Went with the burgers last night, hoping to do some chicken tonight and throughout the rest of the week because they make the holiday magic even easier over at Omaha. So save big on gourmet gifts and more holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Just visit omahasteaks.com and for an extra $35 off, use code Patriots at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. Again, that's omahasteaks.com, promo code Patriots at checkout. Did I give you enough time there?
It is currently downloading.
Okay.
So iMovie, it does this weird thing where I'll take the video clips out and it will only upload it as the video with none of my annotations on it. And I think this was one of those times, but I fixed it. It just got done exporting. And here it is. Okay.
That's how you work together.
It's not going to get us in trouble with the NFL. So once again, try this one again. Second and goal later on in the first quarter. Patriots are going to empty out the backfield once again. Yes, I was just making sure this wasn't the last play because, again, we have Travion Henderson all the way on the outside. But this time, it's going to be more of a man. It's a zone look because you have a cornerback outside. That's not really what the Bills are running. We'll get into that in a second. But by emptying out the backfield, it gets the Bills thinking because the Patriots don't really call quarterback runs from empty very often. And one thing, I wasn't sure if Drake was ever really going to run this as a pro, or at least not often, but he was excellent on quarterback draw when he was at UNC, where they would do the same thing. They would empty out the backfield. He'd run it right up the gut. He showed good vision to cut off blockers. And I think he's much more dangerous running in a straight line than he is moving sideline to sideline. And here, we're going to see Drake Maye able to use those skills. But the Patriots are going to make it look like they're running, again, another levels concept where you get this corner route from Hunter Henry again, two short in routes from the receivers on the outside, although this time Travion Henderson is one of those receivers, and a smash concept, basically the same thing, but with one less under route to the other side of the field. But I don't even know if this is an actual RPO where these are real pass options or if they're just decoys, because the way that a lot of these routes are run doesn't look like anyone's really trying to get open. And at one point, Stephon Diggs throws his hands up. I'm not sure if it was a celebration or if he was trying to make it look like he was getting held by a couple of defenders. But whatever it was, I'm not sure exactly whether this was a decoy route concept or a real option. You see that sometimes with the Eagles as well in Jalen Hurts. But the Bills, for their part, how this is going to play out, I'm not exactly sure what the call is, but it basically plays out is man coverage across the board with a bracket on Stephon Diggs and this linebacker popping out from his mug look to help cover any kind of intermediate or any kind of short inbreakers, exactly like Matt Collins is going to run. But as I said, everybody's eyes are on their assignments because they're essentially playing man, and this guy who pops out is going to be matching. So it's not even a zone drop where he's just going to be looking at the quarterback while trying to read space around him just based on vibes, essentially. He's going to be looking at the inside and looking away from Drake Maye. He's going to make him pay for that. Now, up front, you're going to see, and this is really what gives it away that this was a designed run and not just a scramble, was that Garrett Wilson is actually going to try to get to the second level and block Shaq Thompson, but because Shaq Thompson's no threat, he ends up not really doing a whole lot. And then essentially you're going to try to part the Red Sea. And the way it's going to play out is Mike Nwenu is going to get his guy out of this gap. Morgan Moses is going to create a seal, and Drake Maye is going to take advantage. Now you get the snap. Oh, look, no one other than the defensive linemen are looking at Drake. As I said, Shaq Thompson is all the way on this side of the field looking for the inbreaker. And you also have the safety here. I think this is Cole Bishop. with his eyes on Stephon Diggs. That's going to create a massive lane along with the blocking you're going to get from the offensive line. And the Bills thinking that they're pass rushing, having no idea that the Patriots are kind of begging them to get up the field. Then you see another big lane here. Drake Maye takes advantage. And then a little bit of sauce. I don't know if Mike Graham going to be happy about this, though, because I'm pretty sure Ramondre Stevenson got in trouble for this earlier in the season. But, a little bit of excitement from Drake Maye. We don't always see this. And I was excited, too, because to actually finally see him call quarterback draw Josh McDaniels in the red zone for Drake Maye and have it work immediately, feel vindicated, as I did on both of these plays. So this element doesn't just make them dangerous in the red zone. This makes them dangerous in the open field. And I also would just love to see more read options, because it's not just Drake Maye running the ball. It's also the fact that the defense having to respect it creates opportunities for running backs to have bigger lanes for themselves. And when you have Ramondre Stevenson and you have Travion Henderson, they can slide off those initial arm tackles and turn them into bigger plays. So again, not only is the design run game looking good, but when you involve the quarterback, as we saw them do more effectively in this game than we've really seen all season, that's where the ground game gets scary. And if Drake is going to be inconsistent, especially in inclement weather or when the ball kind of isn't as dry or in the conditions that he would like, at least you might have something to kind of lean on and take some of that pressure off your young quarterback.
Was that, in your opinion, was it a design run? Was it opportunistic? It looked like Garrett Bradbury was running downfield.
That was 100%. There were way too many people looking like they didn't actually, like, one open and Garrett getting that far upfield, that was not an accident.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, but no, it's good to see. I think, again, we spoke about it, and it's funny. We did our bold predictions before the season started, and one of mine was 10+ rushing touchdowns for Drake Maye. This is the shit I expected all season long. He's at 4 right now, 6 away. Maybe we get there, but that's the kind of
total in one game too. So
right. But this is the shit I was talking about before the season. It's like you can use this guy in the red zone. You add another dynamic, I guess, option or ability to your offense when you use his legs like this. Now you got to stay safe and whatnot, but I think this is exactly what we've been waiting to see. So it was good for them to finally execute it. But again, you got to run through the damn letters in the end zone, because you can't stick that football out and drop it or do anything. We've seen it too many times in this league.
It might get a pass because the Red Sea literally parted. Like, that was one of the. That's the kind of where they say, like, could a real person gain a yard in the NFL?
Right.
With that kind of space, yeah, I think you can get that crawling if you had to.
100%. All right. Well, that's the good stuff we wanted to break down today. A couple more quick topics / things we wanted to touch on here really quick before we get out of here. It's just, the Patriots defense and how desperately they need to get healthy, because as you might notice, this was the positive show for the Patriots last week, and we haven't yet spoke about the defense because it wasn't great. 5 straight touchdowns, 35 points. We know the deal. We know the drill. But no Milton Williams, no Robert Spillane in this one. And also just they need some guys to make plays. So where are you at on the defense? Guys like Christian Gonzalez, still no interceptions so far this year. And having your two of your other better players on the defensive side, hurt and injured like that, isn't going to allow you to make plays, down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, man. I tried to look for some positives with the defense, and I just couldn't find a whole lot. There were stops they had where they purely got lucky. Mm-hmm. I thought that their rush lane discipline, which was supposed to be ruthless and coordinated, I didn't think it was that from everybody. I will say one of the few bright spots was Christian Barmore and Kyrus Tonga. People have really taken that Mike Vrabel quote about, the offensive holding and not the Bills not really getting called outside of that one. People have really run with that. I don't know how you can watch the tape and not say, hey, I understand if as a coach you think that Barmore should have gotten a call, or like Kyrus Tonga at least 2 times was egregiously held. Like one where the guy spins him around, another where you can see his jersey getting pulled. Those are, I don't really like, advocating for penalties when it comes to the trenches, because there's holding that happens all the time. It's easy to miss stuff. And also just like, it's annoying. If you're going to call it every time, it's going to be a long game. But when you are clearly restricting somebody's ability to reach the quarterback or affect the play, that's where I get a little bit not upset, but I don't love it. I don't love it.
Right.
So I did think that there were some opportunities there, but there's also times where you're trying to run line games and nobody's really affecting anybody. I thought those were really kind of poor. And in general, I thought that the coverage wasn't great either. I thought that one area where you really missed Spillane, you missed some really all over. In the run defense specifically, they were forcing Jack Gibbons to be more of that Robert Spillane and force Christian Ellis to be on the field in run situations more than I think you really want him to be. They tried to blitz. They tried to have the linebackers, including Jelani Tavai at times, kind of hammer the line of scrimmage or just dent the middle so that it would affect James Cook's lanes. But basically the offensive linemen just pushed them out of the way. Other than Gibbons a couple times, it just didn't really feel much of a thump from the linebackers when they were coming downhill. And then I don't think where Gibbons, I think, is good as a Robin, where if Robert Spillane is kind of the hammer, he can be the cleanup crew, and he's really good at that. This was a game where I thought you kind of asked him to play out of his comfort zone as well as a lot of other people, and that hurt you. Gibbons did have a pretty good play on like a 3rd and 2 where he stopped the receiver or stopped the running back short, but also that wide open busted coverage where you have the tight end open in the middle of the field, and thank goodness he wound up falling down. Jack Gibbons, one, doesn't get nearly enough depth for the situation. At least I don't know if it was Tampa cover 2 or just regular cover 2. In Tampa, you really are basically a deep defender, whereas in cover 2, it's more of an intermediate kind of optional thing. But that was one where nobody was around him, and Gibbons flies up to try to take away a check down, which Josh Allen did kind of pump, but it felt like Gibbons was trying to cheat that play, and it kind of blew up in your face. Whereas Spillane, he's not perfect, but he gets to his depth, pretty consistently. So thought you missed him there, and obviously the playmaker that he is, where, he's liable to get his hands on a pass if he ends up in the right throwing lane and you throw one to him. And then Milton Williams, I have avoided using him as an excuse for the run defense because while he was disruptive and he is definitely an impact player, they were having success when he wasn't on the field. So I'm thinking, okay, should you maybe take a step back? Yes. Should you be the worst run defense in the NFL? No, you should not.
Right.
Now, I will give the run defense partial credit because when they did try to beef up with some of their, they would have 5 defensive linemen on the field. So not just like a traditional 3-4 where it's like Jelani Tavai on the edge. You would have 3 defensive tackles, sometimes 4 defensive tackles, and then Caleb on Chason and either Harold Landry or Anthony Jennings on the outside. There were some positive gains. I think James Cook had 2 5-yard gains, but you could see the run lanes were constricted. But even then, guys were getting pushed off the ball. Combos were working so they get to the linebackers at the second level, and it just created too much space. And besides that, those are kind of the positives, but other times it felt like sometimes Kairos Tonga, who did make his fair share of plays, when they ask him to be a penetrator and knife into the backfield, that's just not really his game. He always looks more comfortable when he's got his hands in the defender's chest. And I also think part of that is, Christian Barmore's more comfortable doing that when he's at nose tackle. Milton Williams is a better athlete, so he can kind of slip around those blocks and still be in the play. Whereas Tonga's a bit more linear in that way. So when he gets around, he can't really recover or do much else. And when the linebacker's trying to replace that space and getting pushed off the ball or not really constricting it enough, that leads to disaster, and that's what you saw in a few of the big runs for James Cook. And also, I was disappointed by the integrity from the edge defenders, not even necessarily on plays that went outside. I thought that Harold Landry, and this has, I think, been a thing for a few weeks, and I understand he's hurt, he does not compress space against tight ends. Where if it's a tight end, sometimes he's kind of just doing nothing and playing patty cake instead of just putting those dudes on their asses and suffocating any space. And I think that was part of the reason James Cook is cutting back. The defensive tackles are trying to stand their ground, and the linebackers are trying to engage and, again, just tighten up the gaps. But there's no real help from the edge. And I also thought Caleb on Chason wasn't great in that capacity either. And then there were blitzes from Craig Woodson that didn't really work. It's a lot of things, and I'm almost rambling at this point, but
no, you're
they
fine.
really need Spillane and Milton Williams, I think, to bring them back to average, or at least so they can become like the Bills, where the Bills are boom or bust against the run. They make their negative plays, they'll also get gashed. At least create negatives that give your passing offense an advantage versus, you're getting hit for 3-yard gains or 4 or whatever, and you're still allowing them to stay on schedule. So the run defense was not better, with the benefit of hindsight or with more time. I think part of it's personnel, but I also was disappointed by just not enough impact plays from guys like Corey Durden, for example, on a consistent basis. And then when it comes to turnovers, which was something that Mike Vrabel specifically noted. So one, Milton Williams is a playmaker, right? He's forced a fumble. I think that was against the Steelers. Robert Spillane, we've said, he's forced a fumble, I believe. He's got a couple interceptions. Those are guys you can rely on. Jalen Hawkins, I think, has put himself in created turnover opportunities, even if he doesn't always capitalize on them. And then Marcus Jones is the playmaker, I think, on this defense. But when you are missing Spillane and Milton Williams, that's going to hurt you. So when you're talking about creating turnovers, moving those guys from the equation is tough. How many playmakers do you have left? Carlton Davis gets his hands on passes. He doesn't have good hands, though. So he's not really a threat to intercept anything.
Right.
The only players with good hands on the Patriots defense that we've seen do it on a regular basis, or like when you see it, you're like, this is a natural. Marcus Jones, Robert Spillane, Christian Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is Christian Gonzalez is not picking off passes. Now, he's getting his hands on passes at times, and I do want to give him credit for that. But I just feel like his play this year, if we're talking about his long-term fit in this defense, I don't know that he has been enough of a playmaker to justify giving him a big deal when you're a defense that's built front to back. If Gonzo had 5 interceptions in this season, and it's not like no one's throwing at him either. Like, he almost gave up 2 big plays because he got picked. You can blame the scheme. One thing about with Bill, when they would face bunch looks and stacks, they played so much man. They were great playing at depth and not putting themselves in positions to get picked off. But on those first 2 plays on the Bills' first drive, or the 2 plays where Gonzalez was clearly behind his assignment, he ran into traffic both times. There were also some times where I thought he got bullied at the top of routes in ways that you don't really want to see from a guy who is as strong as he is. But also, if you're playing more zone, you'd like to see him create some opportunities, like bait guys. Just with your athleticism and your intelligence, you should be more of a dictator. And I understand that you missed a lot of the games in the beginning of the season. It is a new defense. Maybe he's not playing as quickly. But based on what I've seen this season, the fact that he's not making more of those plays and he's not creating turnovers for you as a guy that's probably going to be the highest paid corner in football when his time comes, I just feel more and more like I'd rather those resources go to the edge, where I feel like the Patriots have no more juice on the edge. I think the opportunistic thing is now what it is, I feel like, all the time. Where I felt like Caleb Chase on earlier in the season was making an impact and he was just getting doubled so much, it was hard to see. And obviously Harold Landry's been slowed, but now it's not great Harold Landry. He'll make his plays, but he's not really scaring you. And Caleb Chase on it feels like, it's a few plays a game, but not consistent either. So if you're telling me, hey, you can pay Christian Gonzalez, tens of millions of dollars, or you can get 2 first-round picks like we did in the Sauce trade and use that to get maybe an edge rusher or another player on your defense that can just make an impact and is involved in the front, where an offense can try to scheme out of him, but you can't just ignore him for an entire game.
Right.
I think I'd take that. And then a corner who has ball skills and who can be physical against the run, where you're not worried about them getting injured. This is not a slight to Christian Gonzalez. I see him as Steph Gilmore, where I don't really want you to have to play the run a lot. To be very honest, I'm cool if Gonzo makes tackles when he has to, like Gilly, but also you're like, bro, if he gets a shoulder injury trying to make a run tackle and you just paid him all this money, it's kind of egg on your face, right? It's football, it happens, but that sucks. Versus, hey, if it's a guy you're not paying a whole lot of money and, is in kind of a different tier, but has those ball skills, even if he gets beat more than Gonzo, and again, you get those 2 first, like I would take that personally. So I'm just trying to think of how this defense in this season, obviously, but also long-term can make more plays. But I also think the personnel is what it is. And I think that when you're missing Milton Williams and Robert Spillane, like, that's going to hurt when both those guys are missing for you. But looking long-term, and I'm thinking like, okay, where can it come from? It should be coming from Gonzalez, but it's not. And I want to give him the caveat of he's in a new defensive system and he did miss time. Those are not insignificant. Maybe he's not playing as fast and aggressive as he could if he is in the defense again next season. But if someone's offering 2 first-round picks and this defensive scheme is going to play a lot of zone and they are going to want their front to dictate things and create opportunities for the back end, I think it makes more sense to invest that way.
He's eligible for an extension this coming off season. Is that right?
I believe so, yeah.
After his 3rd year. It'll be interesting to see how they go about it. It really will be, because it felt like for a long time sort of a no-brainer, right? We've talked about the tent poles on each side was the 2023 first-round pick in Gonzalez, the 2024 first-round pick in Drake Maye. And it does kind of feel, again, he's a good player. He's one of your better players.
We want to be very careful here because like Gonzo's very good. Like this is not trying to disrespect Gonzalez. This is team building conversation.
Right. And it is interesting just the way they've utilized him, the way he hasn't been able to be, not that he hasn't been opportunistic. It's kind of a strange conversation because it's not taking anything away from the guy. He's a great player, but you wonder how much of a discussion and conversation it's going to actually be this coming offseason versus let's just write him a blank check, right? And they do have decisions to make. It's a realistic one, and it will be fascinating to see the way they go about it, given the depth that they do have at the position versus the lighter positions they have elsewhere on the defensive side of the ball. So hopefully he can come down the stretch of this season, pick off a couple passes, show that he can play better in this scheme and help the defense make a push and be more of a push-pull, I guess, with the offensive side of the ball and go on a run here. But definitely need more out of this defense, both getting healthier as well as forcing turnovers and making plays. I know I did mention we're going to do the AFC playoff picture. Let's push that to tomorrow because, A, we're coming up on an hour here, and B, we're also going to take a look at some teams we would like to play in the AFC versus teams we would prefer to stay away from. And then we can kind of maybe do the same in the NFC and talk about some, if they're going to get there, potential Super Bowl opponents that we would or wouldn't like to face as well. So we will push that to tomorrow along with a mailbag as we do every Wednesday on Patriots Daily. So thank you guys again for tuning in today. This was a fun one, taking a look at some of the good things the Pats did on Sunday against the Bills. We will be back tomorrow. So make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to Patriots Press Pass. As always, check out CLNS Media Network, all their other channels as well. Great Celtics coverage, plenty of Patriots coverage here on Press Pass. And shout out to our friends at Prize Picks and Omaha Stakes for sponsoring this show as well. Taylor, good stuff today as always. And you guys, again, thanks for watching. And until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you soon. Peace out, everyone.